Well, hello Internet, and welcome to my Alexa skill development tutorial. In this one tutorial, you're going to learn how to do pretty much anything you could ever want to do with Alexa. So Mark Cuban's been talking up Alexa a lot over the last couple weeks, so I thought it would be a really good idea to come and create a tutorial that will teach you pretty much everything you would ever want to know about developing apps for Alexa devices. So what exactly am I going to cover in this tutorial? Well, I'm going to show you the entire life cycle of interacting with Alexa skills. I'm going to show you the steps to build a skill. I'm going to show you how to install absolutely everything. I'm going to show you how to set up a free Amazon web service, talk about storing files. I'm going to show you how to develop 3 Alexa skills and introduce another brand new tool that just came out recently. I'm going to cover both development on the developer console as well as with Lambda. And I'm going to show you how to pull JSON data from external web services and a whole ton more. So what is the process of interacting with an Alexa skill? Well, basically you're going to say Alexa, and that is what is known as a wake word. And as soon as your Alexa device hears this, or it can be the Alexa app or whatever, Alexa is going to start listening to whatever else you have to say. Then the user is going to say something along the lines of Alexa, open MathBee, which is going to be an application we're going to be developing. And you can see here, launch words. Launch words are words such as open, tell, ask, launch, and use. And whenever Alexa hears these words, Alexa is going to start listening to everything you say and converting your speech into text. This information is then going to be passed to what is called a Lambda function, and the Lambda function is going to respond in kind. And as an introduction, the application you create, or the skill to be more specific, is going to introduce itself. It could say something like, hello, I'm MathBee, and I'm going to do something. Or it can provide information to provoke the user to use a phrase that the Lambda function will understand. The user could then say, Alexa, ask MathBee to multiply 3 times 5. MathBee is what is called the invocation name, and this whole phrase is what is known as an utterance, or the user's request. In this specific situation, the intent is multiply, and it's just an action that will be handled inside of your Lambda function, and Lambda function is all programmed in this situation in JavaScript. And you don't need to be a JavaScript master or a Node.js master to be able to follow this tutorial. And the 2 numbers, the 3 and the 5, are what are known as slots. And those numbers, 3 and 5, are going to be passed and handled by the multiply function. And then a response is going to be transferred or translated into JSON. And JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation if you don't know. And those specific functions inside of the Lambda function are known as intent handlers. So if multiply is the intent, then inside of the Lambda function are intent handlers. They handle the intent to multiply. And then they're going to translate the JSON back into text and respond to the user that 3 times 5 is equal to 15. It's also important to understand that skills can also pass text or images to be displayed on any Alexa device that has a screen. And you can see here the breakdown of an utterance. So we have Alexa, which was the wake word. We then have ask, which is the launch word. MathBee in this situation is my skill's name, and that is the invocation name. And then you have the total utterance, which is made up of an intent, which is multiply, and the 2 slots, which is 3 and 5. So what are the steps to actually build a skill? Well, first you have to write a script, and you're going to specifically inside of this script define utterances. So they could be all of the things you would expect the user to say, such as multiply 3 times 5, what is 3 multiplied by 5, and so forth and so on. Then what you do after that is define the slots. So in this situation, I expect to receive 2 numbers. So inside of these curly brackets, I am going to define those specific slots, which are just like variables, and the variable name is going to be num1 and num2. And then I have to define my intents. In this situation, with our first app, it's just going to be multiply. Then after that, I'd have to create the intent handler, which is going to be created in the Lambda function. And why not just jump over and show you how to install everything? So to start off, you're going to go to developer.amazon.com, and everything we're using here is completely free. And you're going to come up here and click on Amazon Alexa. Whenever you do, you're going to log in with your Amazon account. If you don't have one, you'll have to create one. So click on sign in, and there's a registration, and it's just asking you basic information. However, after you fill all of that in, you can come in here and check mark any of the different specific things you're interested in, and then come down here and click Start Exploring the Console. It's probably going to jump you back outside of here to show you all the different options. We're going to click on Amazon Alexa again. And you're going to see Mr. Mark Cuban down here talking about how much he likes Alexa. You can listen to that if you'd like. We're going to come over here and click on Create Alexa Skills, however. This is going to pop up. You're going to come over here and click on Console. Now, the web page might change a little bit, but in all the iterations that I've seen change-wise, Console always remains here. So click on Console. And here you are. You're ready to go. And it's pretty easy and straightforward. What we're going to do is come over here, click on Create Skill. And then you can come in and type in your skill name and language and custom and so forth, which I will cover here in a second. But first, what I want to do is come over and show you how to set up a free AWS account. So we're going to come in here, and to do so, you're just going to go to aws.amazon.com. Very important to set this up. And we're going to click on Create a Free Account. You're going to have to come in and type in email addresses and passwords and so forth and so on, and click on Continue. And again, you're going to type in your different contact information and click on Create Account and Continue. You're going to have to verify everything by text message or a voice call. Click on Send SMS. After you do that, I'm going to be using the free basic plan, which I'm guessing you will as well. So click on Free, unless you want to pay for it. Come in here and define some information about how you will use this web service and click on Submit. Once again, I went and logged in with my Amazon user account, so type that in, click on Next, and you're also going to do the same with your password. At this point, you're going to get to the Management Console. Then you're going to come up here where it says Services and click on that, and then click on All Services. It's going to look like this. And now I'm going to show you how to store files. So we're going to come down here where it says Storage and click on S3. And we're going to be storing things in what are called buckets. So you can just come over here and click on Create Bucket. Come in here and define whatever you want your bucket name to be and where you live at. And I just checked here, block all public access. And then you're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Create Bucket. And you can see here is the information that I typed in. I'm going to come over here and create another bucket by clicking on Create Bucket. And I'm going to go and define its name just like I did before, and my region, block all public access, and create bucket. And I'm just going to show you how to do a simple backup type of thing. All right, so here we are, and I can come in and click on my original bucket that I created. And it says that it's empty. And I can go and upload information into this bucket just by coming over here and clicking on Upload. I can then drag files into the bucket and click on Add Files if you would like to use another interface instead of drag and drop. And what I did was just dropped an HTML file inside of there. And I'm going to click on Next. Then you're going to set your permissions. I'm just going to leave everything as the default and click on Next. Leave everything as default again, click on Next, and then Upload. And that is how easy it is to upload different files or images or whatever you would like into buckets and storage spaces. Now what we're going to do is again click on Services and come over here where it says IAM. And IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. And this is just going to control access to different AWS resources so you can define who and how resources can be used. So click on IAM. Again, you might need to log in again. Then what you're going to want to do is come over here where it says Roles. Click on that. Then we'll come down here where it says Create Role. You're going to click on AWS Service. And then you're specifically going to come down here and click on Lambda. And then next where it says Permissions. I'm just going to put a check mark right here where it says Amazon S3 Full Access and next with tags. Again, same thing, AWS Lambda Full Access. I'm just going to skip this part where it says tags and click on review. You can then come in and give a role name to this. And we're going to click on create role at the bottom of the screen. All right, so that just gives you an overview of how you can save files on AWS. And now I'm going to go into actually building our first Alexa skill. All right, so what you need to do is you need to define exactly what you want your invocation to be to open up your application. So let's say your skill is called Zuby. So you would just type in or figure out that you want it to be Alexa open Zuby. At this point, you need to define what the response would be. And the response should tell the user how to interact with the skill. So it could be something like, would you like me to solve a multiplication problem? Then you're going to have to figure out all the different utterances that the user may ask of your skill. And it's very important to think about phrases like what is, what's, tell me, give me, get me, find, and find me. And you can see examples here of utterances that I'm going to set up in our skill. And now I'm going to jump over and create the skill. All right, so to start developing, we're going to go to developer.amazon.com, click on Amazon Alexa. There's Mark Cuban again. And we can click on Create Alexa Skills and then Console. I'm going to show you multiple different ways to work with this. So what we're going to do is go click on Create Skill. I'm going to call this Multiply B, just to give it a weird name. I'm going to come down here where it says Custom, and there's multiple different ways to create skills. But I have found I, for the most part, use custom. Then we're going to come down here where it says choose a method to host your skills backend resources. Now we're going to be using Node.js. What that means is we're going to be using the Amazon Developer Portal. Later on in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the Lambda function. Now the positives and negatives is whenever you use the Developer Portal, it is very easy to use. The negative is it's not very easy to debug. So basically, when you first start off, you're going to be using the Developer Portal. And then once you start creating more and more complicated skills, you're going to click on Provision Your Own. But in this situation, we're going to use the Developer Portal, and I'll show you how this works here in a minute. So we got both of those selected, and we're going to click on Create Skill. Then you need to define what template you want to use. I'm going to use the Hello World skill, which is very simple. And you can take a look at all the other different options and play around with these because they are really awesome and will teach you some other things that I am not going to teach you in this tutorial. So click on Choose. You can do like recipes and games and things. I will show you how the quiz game works here in a minute. And you're going to have to wait for everything to be created for you. All right, and here is the Alexa Developer Console. And what we're going to do here first is just jump right in the code. So we're going to click on Code right here. And you can see everything on our screen. There's a lot of stuff going on here. So I'm going to specifically come into this part. The launch request handler is going to be launched, and the speak output is going to be the text that is said to the user as soon as your application is launched. Inside of can handle, let me zoom in here even more and make sure you can see this. This is where you're going to define the requests the handler can respond to. So that is going to be the launch request. That's it. We're going to add more as we go on. Then inside of the handle function, and stick with me if this looks like a garbly mess, I'm going to make everything make sense. Inside of the handle function, we're going to create the response that's sent back to the user. Speak output in this situation is going to be the message that's spoken. And let's come in here and let's change this to something custom. So I'm going to say, hi, I am multiply B. What multiplication problem should I solve? And reprompt in this situation would be additional information that you would say to the user if they do not respond within 5 seconds. So I can come in and define what that's going to be. Again, this is going to be a constant. That's what CONST stands for. And I'm going to call this reprompt text. And specifically, this is going to say, if you asked what is 3 times 5, I will respond with 15. And that just gives the user some information on the type of question it can ask your skill. We're going to change this down here, reprompt text, right inside of there. So just paste that inside of there. You can also define cards, and that's for Alexa devices that actually have a screen on them. So what you want to do first is define the card title, which goes across the top of the screen. So I'm going to say constant card title is equal to I solve multiplication problems. And there we are. And then you define the content of your card. I'm going to call this card content. And I could say something like, if you, well, actually, you know what? Let's just have this be in there. That looks good. So paste that there, close that off. And then if you want to actually have the card show up on the screen, you need to come down here and say with simple card and pass in card title and card content. And that is basically all that you need to do. So now we're going to come up here and click on save and then deploy. After that's all set up, we can come up here where it says test, and you're going to change this to development to test it, and then we can just test it. Alexa, open up multiply B. And there you go. So we don't have all of the intents and stuff set up though. So we're going to do that. So we're going to go to build, this tab up here. And then we need to define our different intents. One thing we can do is get rid of hello world intent because we're not going to use it. So just delete that. And then click on here where it says add. Okay, so what did we say our intent was going to be, or our function that we're going to be creating here? Well, multiply intent. There we are. And that's going to be a custom intent. And there's all sorts of other different types of things that are pre-built into Alexa, which we'll cover later. And then click on create custom intent. And now you need to type in all of your sample utterances. And here are the utterances that we already defined that we want to use. So just plug those in. So let's come in, paste this inside of here, and you're going to see what is 3 times 5 as an utterance. The only problem is we're not going to use this. We are going to put in slot names instead. So we're going to say things like num1, close that off, and let's go and change this to num2. And we can click on add down here, and then we need to define our slot names. So we'll say right here that we want this to be num1. And the data type that we're going to want to use for it. Click inside of here. And what we're specifically, let's go and close these things, they're getting in the way. Specific type we're going to use is going to be an Amazon number. So we're going to type in Amazon.number. And there we are, because that's what it is. Then we're going to create another one. And this one's going to be num2. And click on the plus sign. And again, this is going to be an Amazon number. And there's tons of things that are built in here. Like this is actually actors. And you're going to want to look for specific type of things. Airports are loaded in here so that you can dramatically increase the accuracy of your utterances and getting the proper information. After you create your utterance, just come over here, click on the plus sign, and then you plug in more and more utterances. And you can come in here. I went and entered a whole bunch of them. So I can say something like, what is, and you can just go num and then put a tab like that, and multiplied by, and then num2, and like that, just so you can use tabs and things to speed things up. And then finally, I'm going to say, what's num1 multiplied by num2. And there we go. All right. And of course, hit your plus sign each time through. And there we go. We have a whole bunch of sample utterances, and that should pretty much cover what the user would say. Of course, during the testing phase, you would also add additional utterances. And that's it. So now we're going to go save model and then build model. And then you have to wait for this to build. And there we go. And now we can jump back into the code and make it work. So click on code, and we're going to come in here and we're going to change everything inside of Hello World because we got rid of that intent, remember? So we're going to change this to multiply intent handler. And the name of our intent here is multiply intent because that's what we named it. And if you don't remember what that is, go back into build. Whoops. First I'm going to save this and then I'll go and do it. So save and then go into build. And here is multiply intent. This is what I'm specifically calling. So back into the code. All right, so down inside the handle function, what are we going to need to do? Well, we're going to be able to get 2 numbers that are spoken by the user. So let's just come in here and define this as a constant again. And I'm going to call this num1. And to get the value spoken, I'm going to need to convert it into a floating point number or a number with decimal places. So I'm going to say parse float. Otherwise, it's just going to be a string. And then to get whatever they said, you need to say handler input dot request envelope dot request dot intent slots. Remember, variables are called slots. And the specific one I want is num1. And then I want to get the value that's stored in num1. So value, and there we are. And that's how we get the number 1 they spoke. We're going to do much the same with the second number. So just go 2 instead. And then also change this to 2. Now we're going to have to make a calculation, which is going to be our answer. So I'm going to create answer, and that is just going to be num1 times num2. Now, if we also want to put information out on a screen, well, let's go and first off define our output that we're going to put inside of here. So speak output. I'm going to do some back quotes, which are in the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard. And I'm going to go and get num1's value. And we're going to use times here instead of this star symbol. So I'm going to say num1 times, because this is spoken. Remember that. And this is going to be the value stored in number 2. And then again is equal to, right, like you're writing, not coding, answer. And then you could throw something like by at the end of it. All right, now let's define a card title for users that have that. So I'm going to say card title is equal to, and I'm going to put exactly the same thing inside of it. So let's go and get this. Well, actually, no, that would be for the content. What I'm going to do for the card title is I'm just going to say the answer is, and then for the content, which is card content, equal to, and that's where whoops, I thought I copied this. Let's go and get it again and paste that there. There we are. And then we will be speaking out all this information. I'm just going to get rid of the reprompt here because it doesn't really make sense. And instead, I'm going to say with simple card and define the card title and the card content. Down inside of here, if the user asks for help, that's whenever the help intent handler is called. And you could come into this area and help the user if they get confused how to use your skill. So we could say something like, you can ask me to multiply 2 numbers. And then you could say something like, want to give it a try. And then again, you could do the same thing with your cards for people with screens. So we could say card title is equal to, and we could say ask me to multiply. And then also you could do the card content. And why don't we have this be exactly the same as this? So we'll just copy this and paste that inside of there. And don't forget to put the with simple card part, and we'll do it right here. Paste that there, and there you go. Now you got additional information. Now the final thing you need to do is come down here to the very bottom, and you can see it already has an X there. Remember, we replaced hello world with our custom intent handler, so get rid of hello world and instead call this multiply intent handler. Oops, and get rid of this extra stuff. All right, so we can come up here, click on save and deploy and test it. Click on the test tab, and we can come over here and go, Alexa, open multiply bee. Multiply 3 times 5. And there you go. Pretty simple type of skill, but I think you learned quite a bit working with that. So why don't we come in here and also add the ability to save the last multiplication that we asked of our skill. Well, to do that, we're going to go into code, and we're going to come over here where it says package JSON, open that file up, and let's change this from hello world to multiply b. And you can come in here and describe your application if you'd like. So multiplies 2 numbers. And if you want information to persist or be available to the user at a later date, you're going to need to go ASK-SDK-S3. Remember S3 from saving before. And persistence and adapter. Put a colon. And then we're going to say 2.0.0. And that's all we need to do. And now we can save information. So we'll save that and deploy. Then we can go back into index.js. And to add the ability to be able to save information, you're going to come down to the bottom where it says exports handler right after this. Actually, let's get to the top of the screen first and come in here. We're going to go constant persistence adapter is equal to require ASK-SDK-S3 persistence adapter. So let's just copy persistence because I spell it wrong all the time. And adapter. Okay, got that set. Now come down to the bottom. Come right inside of here. We're going to go dot with persistence adapter, except this has to be uppercase P. And then you put brackets and new persistence adapter dot S3 persistence adapter and bucket name, remember bucket, process dot env dot S3 underscore persistence bucket. And that's all you need to do there. So now we're going to make a couple other changes. We can click on save to our multiply intent handler. So come back up inside of here. Now what we're going to be able to do, or what we're going to need to do, is to save our user data without slowing down the execution. I'm going to add the ability to execute code asynchronously by putting async in front of this. And that just means it's going to execute at the same time. Then inside of here, I need to create my attributes manager, which is going to be needed to save data. So attributes manager. And to get this, you need to go handler input and then attributes manager. After we go and we get all of this information from our user and we calculate the answer, I need to tell the Amazon S3 to save the above values. And how you do that is go constant calc attributes equal to, and then list out all of those values. So I'll have num1, which is going to store whatever is stored in the slot or variable called num1. Do the same thing for num2. And then finally, do the same thing for answer. And there we are. Don't forget to put your semicolon down here. Then what I want to do is cause the function to pause until all of the data has been saved. So I'm going to say attributes manager dot set persistence attributes. And then we will use await attributes manager dot save persistent attributes. All right, so we have that all set up. Now we click on save. What I want to do now is create a new intent handler that's going to be able to retrieve saved calculations. So I'm going to click on the build tab and come over here where it says intents, click on add. I'm going to call this get calc intent, create custom intent, and I'm going to add some utterances. And those are going to be get previous calculation and hit the plus sign, get last calculation, what was my last calculation, and there we are. So I created a whole bunch of utterances and we don't need a slot here in this situation. Click on save model and build model. Now we can go over into code and actually create our get calc intent handler. So let's just come in here right before help. And we're going to be doing much the same thing. Only just go and copy all this, paste that in there, and then get rid of this a little bit. All right, so this is called get calc intent handler, and this is going to be called get calc intent, just as we named it. Down inside of here, we're going to be able to access this in asynchronously again, so that would make sure we put that inside of there. Close off that. Then we're going to need to go get our attributes manager, which is going to be equal to handler input and attributes manager. Again, now we're going to say session attributes is going to be equal to, and then go await attributes manager dot get persistent attributes, and then we'll put brackets here, or, which is over on the far right side of your keyboard, and then curly brackets. And then we need to go and get stored information. So I'm going to have num1 is going to be equal to session attributes has own property num1. Do the same thing for num2. So change this to num2 and change this to num2. And actually, just to be safe, let's go and give a value of 0. So we'll say question mark session attributes num1 colon, let's move over here, 0, and then let's copy that so I don't have to type it out again, and paste this inside of here, change this to num2, and change this to num2, and then let's do the same thing for answer. Let's paste that there, change this to answer, and this is getting the stored information, and make sure this is num2, and this is answer, and then we need to define what we're going to speak out. So I'm going to say let speak output equal to, and I'm going to say, sorry, I couldn't retrieve your last calculation. And we could go card title equal to no calculation found, and card content equal to, and let's just go and copy this, paste that inside of there. And now I'm going to verify that we have information. So I'm going to say if num1 and num2 and answer. Well, in that situation, I'm going to change this information. So I'm going to have speak output is going to be equal to, and we can go and grab that information that was stored. So we'll say num1 times num2 is equal to, and whatever the answer was. And then we could say something extra like, was your last calculation, and throw a semicolon in over here. And the card title could be equal to previous calculation, and card content could be equal to, and we could just go and get the calculation and paste that inside of there. And then after we do this, we'll say return handler input response builder, and say speak, and that's going to be your speak output, and then with simple card, and pass in your card title and your card content, and then call get response. There we are with that, and close that off. And then after you close that off, don't forget to put your final curly bracket and a semicolon. Now, we need to go and get calc handler like this. Go to the bottom of the screen, and we can come in here anywhere really and just paste that inside of there. So paste, and don't forget your comma. And before I leave here, why don't I give you a rundown? I already talked about what the help intent handler does. Basically, if you ask for help, it's going to provide some sort of help for you. Cancel stop and intent handler is going to define what is said if the user asks to stop the skill. Session ended request handler is going to be used to save data and perform other cleanup operations after a skill ends. And if you try to trigger an intent, but you forgot to add it to the add request handlers, then intent reflector handler is going to say things like you just triggered and whatever the intent name was. And then finally, error handler is the default error handler for your skill if something goes wrong. All right, so click on save, and I don't think we did anything wrong here. I don't see any X's, and deploy, and go into test, and Alexa, open multiply B. Multiply 3 times 6. Okay, and then Alexa, open multiply B. And then we can say previous calculation. Previous calculation. Uh-oh, something went wrong. Let's figure out what. I see what I did. Calc attributes right here. You need to copy that and put that down inside of here. So throw that inside of there. Everything else should be fine. And that's in index.js, of course. Click on save and deploy. And after deployment successful, click on test. Alexa, open multiply B. What is 3 multiplied by 8? All right. Alexa, open multiply B. Previous calculation. And there you go. So you just created an application, you've created a skill, and this is what would show up on the user's screen. And you also learned how to save previous calculations and previous data to be used at a future date. All right, so a lot of information there, and now I'm going to show you how to quickly create a quiz. All right, so before I show you how to make a stock application that grabs stock prices from an external API, I want to show you how easy it is to create a quiz. So just click on Alexa Developer Console in the upper left-hand corner, create skill, And then we're going to give this a name. Let's call this Quiz Me, just to give it some type of name. And you can see all these different things. If you have smart home devices, you can play with that. Flash Briefing is really cool as well. I'm going to leave this as custom, and to use the developer console, remember you have to have Alexa hosted Node.js, and then click on Create Skill. And you can see right here, it has the option to create quizzes. And again, this is for creating recipes and different games, but we're just going to work with the quiz. So just select quiz and choose. And it takes a while to create this. All right, and everything's built, and we can go to code. And this is based off of US states, but you can see here exactly how everything is all set up. And because you already know how to build a basic type of skill, you'll understand what's going on. So you can come in and customize what is said whenever it launches. And there's all the quiz handling data. And you can go in and explore all these pre-built templates and really learn a lot of different things. But what we're specifically going to do here is I got this guy open. And I want to search inside of here. What I'm going to search for is Alabama. And we can go down here. And here what you can do is you can see all the types of information. The way this quiz is set up is you go and you could easily go in and change all these different things. And it's going to quiz the user on the abbreviation for the states, the capitals, the year that it was established, and the order in which this state was established. So you can see that it's automatically going to come in here and take all this information and generate all kinds of different types of quizzes. And you can see here's welcome messages and so forth. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview of just how cool the pre-built templates are. And you should go in there and play around with them. And now what I want to do is show you how to create a working Alexa stock application that is going to grab current prices on stocks from an external API. Now, just like before, everything's free, and I'm going to use something called Alpha Vantage. So just go alphavantage.co. And what you want to do is go and get yourself an API key. And to do so, you just put software developer, whatever your organization is, email, and get free API key. And then your API key is going to show up right here. I blanked mine out because I am going to delete it, so there's no point anyway. So what you want to do, however, is go and copy that. And now we're going to create a brand new application using Lambda instead. Remember I said Lambda is better for debugging, and for something complicated like a stock application, you're probably going to need that. So we're going to click on Alexa Developer Console again, and we're going to create a new skill. And I'm going to call this Stock Fetch. And English is fine, and custom is fine. However, I'm going to come down here and click on Provision Your Own instead of the normal way of doing it. And I'm going to click on Create Skill. I'm going to leave Start from Scratch selected here and click on Choose. And we can close all these things down here that we have on the side. I'm going to come over to our build, make sure build is selected. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to have custom slot types this time. So I'm going to show you how to do everything. So click on Add. And inside of this, I am going to name this tickers, create custom slot type, and then I need to enter stock values. Now, these are going to be all the stock ticker symbols, and you're going to have to name them for as many different stocks as you want to allow for. I'm going to keep this somewhat limited, however. So I'm going to say Microsoft, and I am going to put IBM inside of here. You can see that they are adding at the bottom. Amazon, Apple, and Google. All right, so there we went, and I put all of these sample tickers inside of here. And I got all that set up, and I can click on Save. Then what I need to do is go in and create an intent. So again, intents, I'm going to click on Add, and I'm specifically going to call this Get Stock Intent, create custom intent. And then I have to put in some sample utterances. So I'm going to say something like, get the price for, and then I'm going to say ticker. And this is going to be my custom slot. So I'm going to click on Add, come down here, and I'm going to type in ticker and enter. And then for my custom slot type, I'm going to use my custom data type, which is right here, tickers. There we go. All right, now that I have that set up, come up inside of here and we can say enter, and then I can add in some other utterances. Oh, you know what? Get the price for ticker. Let's just keep this simple. You understand the concept of creating different utterances, so I'll just leave you to create some more if you'd like. Oh, why don't I get one more in here? All right, so let's go ticker and price. There we go. All right, so I'm going to save my model and build. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a Lambda or a Lambda function. And to do so, I'm going to go to AWS, Amazon.com, sign into console. And I'm going to come right here, click on Lambda. You might have to click on Lambda there. Now let's go and create a new function. And then I'm going to come over here where it says Browse Serverless App Repository. And then I'm going to look for Alexa Skills Kit Node.js Fact Skill, which is right here. And it just has a whole bunch of things set up. And I'm just going to use it as a template to work with. So I'm just going to click on this. Down inside of here where it says Application Settings, I'm going to call this Stock Fetch. And that's all I need to do with that. And just click on Deploy. Don't need to do anything here. And I'm just going to click on Test App and over here on the right side of the screen. And then I'm going to come down and ignore all this stuff. Just come down here where it has your new skill created and just click on this. And everything is going to open up for you here so you'll be able to start working with this. First thing you're going to do is you're going to change your trigger to using what we previously developed. So I'm going to go and get rid of this just by clicking on this X. And I'm going to say Add Trigger. And then I'm going to click on this little drop down, go to Alexa Skills Kit. And I need the skill ID that I developed over in this guy for right here. So to get that, what you need to do is go to Endpoint over in the developer console. So click on Endpoint right here and click on AWS Lambda ARN. And you're going to want to copy this code that's right here. So just click Copy. Go back into Lambda, paste your skill ID inside of it, and now the function you create in Lambda will be now tied into your intents and slots and on utterances and everything else you developed in the Alexa developer console. So click on Add, and there you go. And whenever you click on this little guy right here, what it's going to do is allow you to enter and then mess around with all your code. But first, you're going to want to click on Save, and then we can start developing everything. So this is pretty cool stuff. You can go and view this code full screen so you can see it a little bit better. And if you're wondering how I went and increased my size, just go to View and Font Size, and this is going to allow you to increase your font size. All right, so I got all that set up. Now, very first thing I want to do, I want to create a new file, and I am going to go and have the function that actually gets my stock data inside of here. I'm just going to give it a name right now. I'm going to say Save As, and I'm going to give it the name of functions.js and click on Save. And now I'll walk you through the entire process of going and getting information from Alpha Vantage, and hopefully you have the API key. All right, so very first thing I want to do is go and create a new constant. And this is going to allow us to establish an HTTPS connection with our outside API. And you just say require HTTPS, and there you go. All right, now I'm going to create a function called myFunctions, and I will bring this into index.js to get all that. Very first thing I want to do is make an HTTP request and retrieve data. So I'm going to say get data is the name of this, and function. It's going to receive options, which are going to be the URL and the path that I want to pull data from. And I could come in here and do things like write to logs. I couldn't do that before with the console that we used previously. So I could do something like, say, entered get data, just to monitor what's going on with my application. And then I'm going to say return new promise. And because we have to go to an external site to get information, I'm going to need to set this up asynchronously so that we can wait, grab code, and then work with it after that. Don't forget your semicolon. So I'm going to define a variable called request and HTTPS request and pass inside of it options, which again is going to be the host where we're pulling this data from, and the path, and response this, and don't forget to close this off with a semicolon. And let's say that I want to go and put some information about the status code on whether I was able to pull data from the service or not. I could come in and say something like status code and get the response status code. Close that off, and that'll print in my logs, which I will show you. And then I could say if the response status code is less than 200, a 200 status code means that we were able to go to the website to pull the data and it was good. So we'll say if it's greater than or equal to 300, that's also bad. All right. So this is what we will do in a situation in which we tried to pull data and it didn't work. So we'll say reject and new error. And the error message we want to print is status code. And then we can just go and output whatever the status code was and figure out how to debug it from that point. Otherwise, then we can go and get our data. So I'm going to go and create a variable called body. And then I want to go response, on data, create a new function, and we'll go and grab all that information out there that we want. Give this a name of chunk and push all this new data into body. So push chunk, and don't forget to put your semicolon. So now at this point, processing is going to end. So I'm going to say response on. Most of the heavy lifting is going to be done in the index function. Create another function here. Put your semicolon right there. And we could have some type of an error. So let's catch this. And I'm going to say body is equal to, and I need to convert this JSON data that I get from them with stock information and body and convert it into strings. And of course, if we're trying to pull this data, something could go wrong. So we want to catch any errors that occur and just call reject error. And then after this, we will call resolve body, which is going to contain everything we were able to pull. And then after this closes, I can check for any other different errors that may have occurred and signal those errors as well. And go function and error. Call reject as well on that. And then after we do that, put our semicolon right here. I'm going to go and end my request for data, which is important to do. All right, so we got this function all set up, and throw a semicolon there as well. Now what I want to do is export this so that it can be used in index.js. So we say exports is equal to my functions. I only have one function, but whatever. All right, so we got that all set up. That's everything. So let's save that and jump over into index.js. Okay, so what are we going to need here? Well, I'm going to need to go and get access to my function that I had. So I am going to say constant actions is equal to require and ./functions is the name that I gave it. After that, I am going to need to store my stock ticker. So I'm going to call this stock ticker is equal to, and let's put Microsoft in here by default. I'm also going to have my API key. So API key, and you're going to have your own API key. So equal to your API key. I'm also going to store the stock price. So stock price is equal to, and let's go put that inside of there. And then I'm going to have to define the different parts of the URL that I'm going to be pulling information from. So one's going to be the host. So I'm going to call this API host is going to be equal to, and that is www.alphavantage.co. Co. And this is going to work most the same whenever you're working with any of these. And then I'm also going to define path 1, which is going to be specific to the query that I am asking for this. And I got all this information from their website. So we're going to say query function is equal to, and the specifics is I'm looking for daily information. because you can also get historical stock information, if I can spell daily right. And then you're going to have symbol is equal to, and that's going to be your ticker symbol. I'm then going to have AV API path 2, and this is just going to have my API key in it. So equal to, and we'll go and API key equal to plus, and put the API key inside of there. And if you're wondering where I'm getting the query for the actual URL, just go to alphavantage.co documentation. And you can see down here that it gives you some samples that you can use. So this is actually to look up IBM, all right? And that's what we're going to be looking up along with some other tickers. And actually, I don't even care if you see my API key. Just understand that if you use it, it's probably not going to work. So there it is. All right. The reason why is it only allows you to access the service for free so many times per hour. So get your own API key, because chances are this one won't work. But either way. So now that we have all that set up, I'm going to create my launch request handler. So I'm going to go constant launch request handler, and we'll say can handle handler input, and then we'll say return Alexa get request type and handler input request envelope equal to, and this will be launch request. All right. Then after this, we'll define our handle. So handle handler input again, and define what we're going to say. So speak output, and we'll say I'm doing back quotes right here. This is a back quote. So I'm stock fetcher, say a ticker for today's high price. You can throw a question mark there if that makes sense. And we can do a reprompt output. Remember, that happens after 5 seconds. And I'll say something like, you can say something like get the price for, and I want this to be said as individual letters. So to do that, you go M dot S dot F dot and T, close that off. And then we can say return handler input response builder. There we go. And what we're going to say is speak, and you know how to print a screen, so I'll let you do that if you'd like. And then we could do our reprompt again, and we'll use reprompt output right here. Let's throw that in there. And then finally we would say get response. And there we are. So that handles what happens whenever the application first launches. And don't forget to put your semicolon right there. Okay, now we need to actually go and get the stock information. So I'm going to call this get stock intent handler equal to this, and throw a semicolon here at the end. I'm going to come up inside of here and copy this stuff. So that's good. And paste that inside of there. Can handle, in this situation, this is going to be an intent request. Get rid of that right there. And then we can go down to the next line and say and get request. So this is get request type, handler input, request envelope. A lot of this is going to be the same. So let me just copy this, paste this in there. And instead, what we're going to say is get intent name. So we'll say intent name. Handler input request envelope, exactly the same, and this is going to be changed to get stock intent. All right, so we got that. So now I just need to handle this process, close this off, throw a semicolon there, or actually not there. Okay, so this is going to be calling an outside web service, so this needs to be handled asynchronously. And what we want to do here first, we could do something like console log and called get stock intent handler. And the very first thing I want to do is I want to get the ticker the user requested. So I'm going to say stock ticker is equal to handler input dot request envelope dot request dot intent dot slots dot ticker is what I called it, and value I then want to complete the path to, the URL that we're going to use. So I'm going to call this final API path, and that will be AV API path. Whoops, make sure I spell everything right, otherwise massive mess. 1 plus, and we'll throw our stock ticker in there, and that's going to create the URL that we're calling. And then we will put the bottom part on here, which is going to be our API key. Change that to 2. Then what I want to do is set the HTTPS options to pass to get data, and that's going to be the host URL, the actual host URL, which is AlphaVantage, and the path. So I'm going to say options is equal to host is going to be AV API host, and the path is going to be final API path, what I just defined. And we're using the get versus the post method for grabbing this information. And that's what that means. And we close that off. Okay, so we defined all that. Now I can go, it's probably going to make sense anytime you're working with something like this, that you're going to want to output on the screen the URL you called in case there was something wrong there. That's normally a common error. So we can go and do that. And final API path. So that's going to output in the logs just so I see it. Now I need to define the defaults for what my skill is going to say. So I'm just going to keep this very simple and just say something went wrong. And there's that. And then I can also, I'm going to work with cards. So I will say card title is equal to stock price, and card content, card content is equal to get the day's high stock price. So I can just put something inside of there. And now I am going to go and try and get it. So I'm going to say try. And because we're going to use promises in get data, we're going to be able to, or have to use a wait here to wait for data to be pulled in. So what I want to do is get the JSON data that's requested. And let's call this JSON data is equal to await. And it's going to say, hey, go get this information and wait until we get it. And data, and I need to pass in the URL that they're going to. I could then output on the screen this JSON data that we received. So JSON, again, that's something you'll do very commonly if you're pulling data from JSON data from an external API. I want to then check if usable data was received or not by checking the status. So I'm going to say status is equal to JSON data status. And I can go and output that if I'd like. And now what I want to do is I want to get the daily high stock price. So I'm going to go var and data key object is equal to JSON data. And I am going to go objects or object key and JSON data. This is probably the only part of the tutorial that really somebody that isn't somewhat aware of how to work with JSON data might be somewhat confused. Okay, so what is this? Well, if we go to, this is the JSON data we're pulling from. What I want to do is I want to find the date. So this date right here. So how I get that is with that code you just saw. So, whoops, went to the wrong place. So I'm looking for this guy right here, which is the second JSON object in our JSON data. This is obviously the first, this is the second. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm saying that I want to get the second one. Well, the first one's actually called 0, the second one's called 1. All right, so I'm saying I want to get that block, and then I want specifically the current date, because I have no idea what it is, and it's going to change every day obviously, and on the weekend it's going to not be the current date, so it's going to be, the Friday date. So if I want to be able to get stock information on Sunday for something that happened on Friday, I need to do that. Okay, so date key is going to be object and keys and date key object, and I want to get our 0 position in this situation. So again, let's look at this. What I'm looking for is the first one inside of this one. So I'm looking for this right here, and then I want the very first JSON object inside of it, which is this. And I want its key name, which is this, which just so happens to be the date. Okay? So now I got the date, and that's what's in date key. That's an actual date. Well, now that I have that, what I can do is go and get my stock information. So if I want my stock price, specifically what I want is this piece of information right here, which is in this part. This is the key, this is the value, all right? So I'm gonna say stock price is gonna be equal to, well, I want to convert this into a float. So I'll say JSON data, and specifically, I'm looking for time series. Let's just go and copy that. Time series daily, this guy right here. So go paste that inside of there. And then the very next thing I want is date key, which is going to be the date. So throw that inside of there. And then what I want after that is the part that matches up with the high. And that's this guy right here. So just copy that and paste that inside of there. Then what I want to do is convert this into 2 decimal places. So I'll say 2 fixed and 2. So it's going to convert it into a float, and then it's going to convert it into 2 decimal places. And that's it. That's got my stock price. So then I can say console log and go and put my stock price inside of there so that I also know if I was able to get that or not in my logs. So like this, and stock price. Good stuff. We're very close to being done. Isn't that awesome? So now what I can do is say speak output is going to be, and I can say the current high price for, and whatever the stock ticker is that the user requested. Whoops. Put that there. Whoops, get that out of there. It'll cause a mess. All right, so there's that. Is, and then I can go and output the stock price. And this can be used, this like exact template can be used to pull data from so many different other external sources. So it's extremely useful code right here. All right, so of course we could have an error. So I want to catch any errors that may occur. So there's that. And what we're going to do here in this situation is go card title. Let's go card title is equal to, and this would be an API error if something went wrong here. I can go card content is equal to, and let's say that I want to output information on my path, because there's chances are that's gonna be the problem. Obviously, this is something I would do during development time, not during time where I'm planning on actually using this as a skill that somebody's going to use. And then I can go return and handler. Let's just type it out. Input, response builder, and speak. And we can say there was an API error, and to output with simple card. And we'll say card, this will be title, and card content. And then finally get response, which is right there. Throw that there, put that there. All right, so there is all of that stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to go and do basically the same thing. Just go and copy this, paste this here. And here I'm just going to have this be speak output and get rid of the card in that situation. I'm not going to need this because this is for the fact thing that I used as a template. So I can get rid of that. I can come up here and get stock intent handler. Copy that, go way to the bottom. This is a whole bunch of other garbage I can get rid of. I can also, well, where is it? Here we are, exports handler, skill builder. And this is the guy that I got rid of, so get rid of that, paste that inside of there instead. And also I'm going to want to put in my launch request handler. So launch request handler, put a comma. Help handler, exit handler, all these other things are pretty much okay. I'm also not going to use any of this localization information right here, so get rid of that. And it says this is all external stuff that's specific to this fact thing. Let's go and get rid of that also. So that's all gone. Now it's all a lot more cleaned up, which also means I want to get rid of this. And also I'm going to get rid of this. And I think everything is all cleaned up now. I think that's all that I'm going to need to do. I don't see any errors. So let's click on save. And now I'm going to show you how to set up testing. So what you're going to do is come over here next to test and configure events. It's going to be create new test, template. I'm going to look for Alexa intent get new fact. So where is that at? Oh, here it is. Alexa, see, Amazon Alexa intent get new fact. So select that. And the event name is going to be called get price. So just type in get price. And then we're going to go down here where it says request. And this is an intent request. And what we're specifically calling the intent is called get stock intent. And then down inside of slots, I need to go and put in my different slot information. So I'm going to say ticker, ticker, make sure you spell it right, obviously, colon. And then specifically what I want to test for is name is ticker. And let's go and throw in a value, which is going to be a stock. And the stock I'm going to look for is IBM. That's it. So got all that set up. And I can click on create. And then I can click on test up here. And I got an error. It said it couldn't find the module function. And that's because it should be called functions. So let's click save again and test again. And it's loading down here. And it says unexpected token. So we're just gonna have to go and fix a couple little bugs that we have here. And you can see right here on line 36, I forgot to put output. So that's saved. I also put fetch there, stock fetcher. So that's better. Save. Down here on line 66, change this to get data. That probably went in there accidentally. So let's go save. Down on line 71, get float. And that's better. Save. And after fixing those problems, you can see here that I asked for IBM and it printed out the current high price for IBM is $125.83. And if you do happen to have any type of problems, you can collapse this guy right here and you can come up here where it says monitoring, click on monitoring. And then right here where it says details, click on details. And you can see all of the information that we just saw there previously. And here is all the JSON data that we pulled out of there as well. And this is specific to get price. And we can also go view logs in CloudWatch. And it's going to show you all of your latest logs, actually all of them. Click on the top one right here. And you're going to see all of the logging information that we said that we wanted to output. And there is everything. All right. So if you guys had any trouble with anything there, in the description is a link to all of the code as well as step-by-step directions to do everything covered in this entire tutorial. So hopefully you guys found this useful. And like always, please leave your questions and comments down below. Otherwise, till next time.